Hello there everybody, Sam's Trent here and welcome back to the railway, and today I'm going to do a little bit of a servicing video for you. Just over a week ago a chap called Ray Hall sent me a message asking if I would do a video showing how to service the various parts of these Wrenn locomotives, specifically W2227 I think, which is this one, the City of Stoke on Trent. So yeah, I'm going to show you that today as quick as I can. I'm not going to try, I'm going to try not to waste any time. And yeah, I'm going to show you how to fully service one of these things, and this tutorial will also work for most other Wrenn locos, including all of the cities, the A4s, the unrebuilt West Country Class, the 264 tanks, the Royal Scot, and most of the Hornby 00 locos which have the vertically mounted armature. Now if you want me to do one that will suit the castles, for example, with the different motor, I can do that, but I think this is the most common, so that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm not going to bother showing you all the stuff you'll need because you might not want to use all of it, and most of this stuff you can do with just regular household items. So I'm just going to dust off the loco body with a paintbrush. I always start with that, I always show that every time just because it is important and it does easily remove the dust, and it can make your locos look a lot better presented. Okay, so let's flip this engine upside down then, because we're just going to have to take the body off, and because these are so heavy you really do want to find a way to cradle these so that they're not in any danger of getting damaged. And these cities and most of the Wrenn locos are just held in place by either one or two screws. This one is just one at the front behind the bogie. Hopefully you could see that. It isn't too difficult to get this out, although I say that I can't flip and get it out. Hang on, a bit more. There we go. And I've got a little pot here which I'm going to put some of the various screws in because I am bad with losing screws. Okay, so then all you do is you pull it up at the front and slide it forwards and out. And then of course we can now put the body to one side, like so. Okay, so let's work on the motor first. What I'm going to do is remove the magnet assembly, but first I'm going to use this compass just to make sure we know which way it goes back. So this compass is actually wrong. I've managed to recharge this compass in the opposite direction for some reason, so north is actually this way. So just bear that in mind, and now I'm going to take this magnet off because the first thing we're going to do is attend to the motor. So you get this magnet assembly off, and all you do is you just undo the bolt and this giant over-engineered screw comes out. So I'll put that to one side nice and safely, and also these motors are actually labelled R and L, so left and right. You can't see that on the camera I don't think, but you'll see it in person when you do it. And I'll just pull that assembly out. It isn't physically attached together, but the magnet holds that together, so put that to one side. Okay, the first thing then, let's check the motor. So I'm going to take this out. Now all you need to do is loosen this top piece. Now there is a little nut which holds this top piece in place, so you're going to want to loosen that, and you've got to do this very gently, he says. Okay, now there are some ball bearings in here, and if you're not careful taking this apart, they may fall out and roll away, so you want to be very careful. Now this piece comes off, as you can see. Now you're going to want to make sure that there is a ball bearing inside this piece. If not, your loco is going to run badly. Now if you're missing the ball, first let me show you how you check that there's a ball bearing. Normally you can see it down the end, but if you can't, get one of these neodymium magnets and just hover it over the hole. And as you can see here, the little ball bearing has come out. Now they're tiny ball bearings, and if you haven't got one in there, you need to source one. And I get them on eBay. They're the 1/16th inch ball bearings, steel ones. And yes, you can just find those on eBay and order them. So there is one in there, and I'm going to pop this one back in now. And before I replace that on the motor at the end, I'm going to make sure that's well lubricated. So I'll put that to one side. Now, I have to thank Mike's Movies for this, because I couldn't see any way of getting this motor armature out, because I just couldn't see it fitting out. But it actually does come out quite nicely once you've removed this top piece, but I never thought of that. I didn't fancy doing that. Okay, so let's take the brushes out then. I think this is something Ray Hall wanted me to do, show you how to replace the brushes. So you just take out these little pins, or whatever you call them. They are a bit awkward to get out, but they're actually not screwed in at all, so you should just be able to maybe twist and pull them out. But bear in mind that there is a spring behind each of those. So firstly, don't lose the spring, and secondly, of course, don't be shocked when it springs out at you. So that's what the spring looks like. It's quite a long spring, and I'll just pop these down. Okay, let me take the other side out. The brushes at the moment, of course, are still inside. And these are particularly tough ones, but normally you can get them out by hand very easily. This one is very tough. Okay, got it. Okay, so take that spring. Now you've got to get the brushes out. Now the brushes are quite easy to come by on eBay. There we go, I'm just tipping these out. Bear in mind, if it's never been serviced before, these brushes could be well and truly stuck in there, so you might need to flush them out with some lighter fluid or something like that. But that's the brushes, just bear in mind which end has been the end touching the armature, because obviously they've been shaped. Okay, let me pop those to one side, not losing those. Okay, and now we can take the armature out. Now I don't know how well you're going to see this, but you basically just want to pop it up and pop it out. It's a bit awkward, but it can come out. Okay, there we go. Right, be very, very careful of these because there are bare wires exposed here which you don't really want to touch. Okay, put that to one side because there should be a second ball bearing in the bottom end of this bearing. And again, I'm not going to actually take this one out, but I'm going to make sure there is one in there because they do come out and they are quite annoying like that. So I'm just trying to see if there is one down there, and I can't see really. It's often quite difficult to see, so I'm just going to poke around with a needle. Yes, there is one in there. Yep, there certainly is one in there. And of course, before I replace the armature, I'm going to oil that as well. So here's the armature. If you want to, you can do tests on the coils by just, well, in fact, check out my triang servicing video. That shows you all about that. But this one's been tested before. I've serviced this one before, so there's nothing wrong there. But what I'm going to do is clean up the commutator, which is very important. So I'm just going to use a lighter fluid. This is what I use to clean, and cotton buds. Now of course, if you're cleaning the armature outside of the loco chassis, you've got to be so careful not to catch any of the wires. So I'm going to do that as well. So very quickly, I'm just going to clean this armature. And also, while you're at it, you might as well clean the places, well, the bearings if you like. So basically the top and the bottom of this armature piece, because if they're dirty, you're going to get a bit of friction, and you know, little things like that really can affect your performance. So bear with me. I'm using a needle here just to clear out the gaps in the commutator, and again, that's not really going to be a big issue unless it's an old model that's been run a lot but never serviced. Okay, so I'm happy that the armature is clean, well, the commutator, and now I'm just cleaning. You can clean this sort of worm drive as well if you'd like, but the most important thing is just to make sure that top and bottom piece is very nice and clean. Okay, yep, that is nice and clean. Okay, so let's get some lubrication done then. Now I use this oiling pen. This has just got the Hemline machine oil, which you can get on Amazon inside it. And I'm just going to go inside here and oil that little hole where the armature sits. Now I realise you're not going to see a thing with me doing it like this. So you'll have to sort of look at your own models to work out what's going on here. But yeah, basically there's a little hole, as you'd expect, where the armature slots into, and you're just going to want to make sure there's a ball bearing in there, 1/16 inch ball bearing, and of course plenty of oil to keep it moving. And there's also a gear inside there which marries up to this worm drive, and you're going to make you really want that to be nicely lubricated as well. Okay, so that has been done, and this is now ready to go. And you could put a bit of oil on the bottom of this if you want, but I think I'm going to go ahead and put this straight in now. So very carefully, you've got to slot this in. It's going in. There we go. Okay, so that's been done. Now, again, when you're replacing this top piece, you're going to really want to be careful not to lose that ball bearing. And especially once you get it lubricated, it's going to start rolling around and it could come out quite easily, so just be aware of it. Okay, so obviously these need to be screwed in perfectly. If you get them too loose, the motor's going to jiggle around and it's not going to run properly. If you get it too tight, you're going to be putting lots and lots of strain and pressure on the motors. So yeah, you've got to get it just right, and I'll show you how to do that. And again, Mike's Movies is very good at explaining this. So yeah, do check out Mike's channel. It's very worthwhile. And again, I do have to credit him with some of this stuff. Okay, so that's just about tight, I think. It's not completely tight, and I'm just trying to work out why this nut isn't loose, because it should be. Hang on, 1 minute. So yeah, that's it. You're going to need to just put that on sort of roughly tightly, not terribly, but yeah, and we'll work on how to adjust that later on. Okay, so you want to also make sure that these springs and things are nice and clean at both ends, so you've got good electrical contact. These are actually very clean. This loco hasn't done much running in the past. So I don't know if I've already talked about brush replacements, but you can find these brushes very easily on eBay, and they are quite cheap. There are different lengths that you can buy, I've noticed, but you might as well just get the longest ones you can, because I think you won't have trouble fitting longer ones in these gaps. I'm just going to clean up these brushes. You don't really need to, but I like to make sure they are clean from the start, and then everything's good and ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to pop these brushes back in, of course making sure I know which end was the end touching the armature in the past. If they're new brushes, that won't matter because they won't have worn yet, but obviously replacing brushes that have been in there previously, you are going to want to make sure that they're going in the right way. Okay, there we go. Pop that in there. Okay, and let's put those springs back in. And I think what we'll do is we'll leave the adjustment of this bearing until the very end, because I want to make sure everything else is clean and lubricated before we do that. I think we'll leave the wheel cleaning to the very end. Right, so I've replaced the spring and I've replaced that piece in there, so I've just got to get the spring in this other side. Here we go. Nice and gently does it. And of course, if some of this wiring has gotten a bit dry, you may need to resolder some of it. But in my experience, they've been generally okay. You know, I don't think I've had a problem with dry joints with these Wrenn engines. Okay, so that's all sorted. Of course, you're not going to want to run it yet because this top bearing here hasn't been adjusted, and it may need to be. It's very unlikely you'll get it right just by just by chance. Okay, so we're going to work on now. I'm just thinking the best way to hold this up. Right, I've got a couple of Lego bricks here. I'm just going to pop those underneath. Oops, I'm just pop those underneath here to hold it up. We're going to get the base of the loco sorted now and the wheel set, so I'm going to make sure that's lubricated, and then at the end we'll deal with wheel cleaning. So I'm just going to undo these two little screws at the bottom, and this should give you access to the pickups and to the main axles. Normally all you need to do here is clean and lubricate. That's all you need to do. So just remove those screws and you get this sort of sandwich in between. Well, you get a sandwich basically. It's two pieces of plastic sandwiched together and the pickups are held in, as you can see, by those two pieces of plastic. So I'm just going to move that out of the way very gently, and I'm going to look behind those, and you can see now revealed is the axles, which just want some light oiling. Not too much, but enough to get them free running. And again, if this is a new locomotive, if it's one you've never run before, you might want to do this while the armature's still out, and that means the chassis will be free rolling so that you can test whether or not it is free rolling. And if it's a bit sticky and a bit hard to move, then there's something wrong that needs tweaking. But I've serviced this one before, of course, so I know there isn't anything wrong with the chassis. But yeah, it might be worth checking once in a while. Okay, let me clean those pickups then. Now, again, if the pickups are dirty and they're visibly rusty or whatever, it might be worth getting the file on them and just sort of, filing them up, making sure they're clean. But don't do that unnecessarily, because of course if you file the surface of something, it gets a little bit of a texture to it, and that sort of invites a bit more dirt and muck. So I don't file things unless they need it. Right, now it's worth noting that this sort of plastic sandwich of the pickups does come apart sometimes, and that is quite useful, especially if there's a dry joint in there that needs resoldering, but it can be a bit of a pain to get it back together sometimes. So if it does spring open, and normally it does, I'm surprised this one hasn't, don't worry, you just need to make sure that it's all seated properly again before you put these screws in. But again, if it doesn't happen, you don't have to worry about it, but if it does, don't worry, just try and get it back in the best you can. Okay. That's that then. Okay, now I'm going to lubricate the wheel set. Now that's just the same kind of oil. You need to lubricate each point that moves. So we've got the linkage rods, the valve chest, well, the valve gear, whatever, all the moving parts basically of the linkage you want to oil. And it's also worth oiling the bogie wheels as well. And I always oil first. I don't know about you guys. I oil before I wheel clean, because then when oil splashes everywhere when you get them running, you're going to be cleaning afterwards rather than before. So there's no oil all over the surfaces of the wheels when you're going to run them. Okay, there we go then. Now it's time to practice with this, and practice getting this top bearing nice and tight, but not too tight, of course. So I'm going to get some Lego bricks here, as you can see, and I'm going to just hold this up. I think I'm going to remove this rear truck because it's just a little bit in the way. So I'm going to take that off and you'll see what I mean. So yeah, I use some Lego bricks for this. As you can see, I've just got a couple of Lego bricks because you're going to want access to this top bearing, so it's all very well running it upside down like I normally do, but when you're tightening the bearing you really want to have access. So that's what I do. I just balance it on some Lego bricks so that the linkage rods and the wheels are all away from the ground. And I'm just thinking I might take the front bogie off as well, because you don't want it to foul the running gear. So just unscrew that. Careful not to lose these screws. There we go. Okay, so let's just hold this up on the various Lego bricks. You don't have to use Lego bricks, of course, you can use anything. Okay, so let's test the tightness of it for now. It's got a lot of movement, has that armature, which means it is a little bit too loose. So you need to get it roughly right. Okay, so that's ready to test now. So before I test that, we're going to have to just pop this magnet assembly back on. So remember which way this went on to start with. Now, it's also worth saying you definitely want to check the strength of your magnet. So I'm just going to use a screwdriver here. That feels good and strong. If there's a problem with the magnet and it doesn't feel strong at all, you need to very much consider whether or not to actually run the engine, because a weak magnet could cause armature damage. You know, it could lead to lots of current being pulled through the motor. So yeah, I do recommend the Ronald Dodd remagnetizing machine, which you can see in a few of my videos. And yeah, they're very useful for remagnetizing these old engines, and yes, they do work very well. Okay, anyway, so what I've got here is a couple of crocodile leads which are hooked up to a Hornby controller, and yeah, all you need to do is connect these to either end of the motor, just like that, and then I'm going to go to the controller and give it some power. So yeah, let's give that a try, see what happens. Okay, well the first thing that happened is there's lots of oil being spat out, but what you need to do now is gradually adjust this bearing, and you will hear the motor slow down or speed up. And again, I got this tip from Mike's Movies, so yeah, thanks for that, Mike, very useful. So yeah, you need to adjust this bearing and then listen. So yeah, let's do it. You'll hear the motor speed up or slow down accordingly. So I'm loosening it now, that's slowing down. I'm tightening it, and the motor's speeding up. So I'm just going to loosen this nut a bit so that I can tighten it more. There we go, tighten it a bit more. And you can hear it slowing down. So you just want to get the happy medium, really. That sounds good to me. And when you're happy, you want to disconnect the power, just like that, and hold this in place and then tighten up that nut. In fact, I'm going to use this screwdriver to hold on to this because I don't want it to go all over the place. Okay, so yeah, we're just tightening up that nut. Okay, that seems good. Okay, I'm just going to power this up again then, just to make sure that it is running happily before we move on. Yep, seems to be. That seems pretty good. I'll check that armature isn't too loose. No, it seems not to be. Okay, so I think I've managed to adjust that okay. So now let's move on to wheel cleaning then, which is pretty important. And this is where I tend to do away with the Lego bricks. So I'm just going to pop those out of the way. And in with the helping hand then, just the same as you normally do. And just be aware that these models are quite a lot heavier than the Triang ones. So just be aware that your helping hand might struggle to hold these weights. I think mine's okay as far as I know, but yes, just be aware of it. Okay, so I think that seems to have that quite nicely, and I'm just going to power it up once again. So each end of the motor, one of these crocodile clips can attach to, like that, and we'll power it up. There we go, nice and quick. And now just using this lighter fluid and the cotton bud, I'm going to just go ahead and start cleaning these wheels. Very easy. There we go. And again, I'm not going to do these for terribly long because I have serviced this, so it is virtually clean. But even though that's the case, you can see there is quite a lot of dirt on these cotton buds. And of course, don't forget to clean the inside of these wheels because they've also got some pickups on them. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. I think they seem to be good and clean, and you know, that is running definitely quite happily. So, cut that power off. Let's start reassembling this then. The first thing I'm going to do is get it off the helping hand. So let's disconnect it. There we go. Put that out of the way. And let's bring the body back into shot then. I suppose I will attach the bogie, the front bogie that is, and the rear truck, or the rear pony, once this is back into the body. I think that's just going to be easier. So, yep, let's slot this back in then. So there's got a rear slot which goes into the casting there, and the front part sits down on top like that. And that's when you just need to pop that screw back in. There we go, which is actually easier without that front bogie attached. So let's screw that on. Not too tight, just tight enough to hold it. That's all you need. And okay, let's put on these, well, let's put the pony truck on first. So this little silver piece needs to go through there, so we'll put that on first. And yes, they do get attracted by the magnets, they do, so yeah, be aware of that. Right, let me pop this back on, right there, and screw that back on. And of course I'm going to clean these wheels as well. They managed to avoid getting themselves cleaned a second ago, but I'm going to do those because actually these are visibly a little bit grotty. So yeah, I'm going to do that. There it is. And let's screw that back on there where it came from. Oops. That was clever. And of course you are going to want to clean the tender wheels as well, but you don't need me to tell you how to do that because, yeah, that's just same again really. You're just going to get your nail polish remover or your lighter fluid and just, you know, clean them up in the usual way. But that seems to be good. So I'm just going to clean these little wheels right now. Right, so that seems to be ready then. We'll take this onto the track and test it, make sure it runs okay. But otherwise, hopefully that should show you how to service these things. They are reasonably simple actually, but yeah, I suppose easy once you know how. Okay, let's go and test this out then and see how she runs. Right, let's get her loaded onto the track then, and yeah, it won't be a massive surprise this one because of course we know it runs okay because we've just had it going. But yeah, always a little bit of a different kettle of fish to get them running actually on the tracks rather than on the workbench. So yeah, I'm just going to make sure all these wheels are on, which they don't seem to be. Okay, they are now. Right, and a little bit of power then, slowly at first, just while that oil's sinking in. I haven't got it on the track properly. But as you can see, yes, that is running quite nicely and quite slowly too for a Wrenn. If I can show you that, there you go. So yeah, that's just about it. I hope that was helpful for you, Ray, and I hope that showed you what you wanted to see. And for everybody else, thank you very much for watching. I do hope that's useful to you all. Thanks to Mike's Movies, who gave me some of these tips in the first place. But yep, that is the complete service for a Wrenn Loco. Alright, thanks for watching then everybody. Do feel free to leave a like or a comment, because I'd love to hear from you. But other than that, once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers everybody.